Welcome to Chapter 8, and this is a huge chapter as we have lots of information that's going to be covered. We're going to talk about fertility trends in the United States, things to consider when deciding whether you want to be a parent or not, because there are rewards and costs. How does having children affect a couple's happiness? Some choose to be child-free, some choose to have one child. Some choose to, or by default, have a child early in life. Others either choose or by default have children later in life. And then there are even non-marital births. Preventing pregnancy, it's a good thing I'm focusing on the questions in the Mind Tap for these lectures, or I do not know what I would choose to have talked about, as I could do a whole lecture just on preventing pregnancy. So the book gives us some good information, and I guess if you want to learn more, you can take my human sexuality class. The chapter talks about abortion. It talks about reproductive technology and adoption. So as I did in the last few chapters, I've compiled the slides that we're talking about for the mind. So social pressures to have children. Pro-natalist bias are those pressures that might influence our decision to have children or not. It's the societal expectation that married couples will have children. And often when a couple doesn't have children, people say, why haven't they? What's wrong with them? And this influence could increase births. People could have children just because they feel they are expected to have children. As some of you may know, some of the strongest pressures may come from a couple's parents. I know I have friends who have children who don't have grandchildren yet, and they are wondering when they're going to have children, and it's such a precarious situation for parents not to want to stress too much the desire to have grandchildren, because they don't know whether their children have chosen not to have children or just can't have them yet. Some would argue that the United States is characterized by what we call structural antinatalism. That is where a group does not do all it can to support parents and their children. So programming such as policies for nutrition, social services, financial aid and education, even time off from work to spend time doing things with their children, or even after having a baby, the amount of time allowed to be at home after having a child for both the mother and the father. So compared to other nations, the United States is a little behind in some of these political issues. The value of children. Why do couples have children? They certainly bring vitality and a sense of purpose into a household. And having a child can broaden a parent's role. As we mentioned in the last chapter, children take a lot of time, effort, and money. But in the process, mothers and fathers learn to nurture, to be advocates for their children. Authority figures, we certainly need our parents to discipline their children. They act as counselors, caregivers, and playmates. Historically, children were seen as having an economic asset. We needed more children to be able to work the fields or to help in the home to support all the family members. This chapter spends some time talking about infertility, so couples who want to have children who are not able to. And what we're seeing is, as couples wait till they're older, there has been a rise in the ability to have children. So we're needing more services to help with that, and these are called assisted reproductive technology services. Those are things that are used to help a couple who is having trouble conceiving. They say that you need to try to have a child for an entire year before you are considered an infertility patient. So Your book refers to it as ART, Assisted Reproductive Technology. It's become a more accepted reproductive option. However, it is very costly. When couples go through procedures, whether it be surgeries, whether it be artificial insemination, whether it be in vitro, we used to call these test tube babies. Louise Brown was the first back in the 70s as the test tube baby. And now she has had her own child born naturally. So she made history as the first child to be born of assisted reproductive technology. Replacement level fertility is known as the level of fertility necessary to replace the members of a population. For example, for each 2 adults that we lose to old age, there needs to be 2 more children to replace them. So you're going to see that term in your MindTap activities this week. In this week's discussion, we're going to talk about how much it costs just during the first year of a child's life. In 2013, they did a study and determined the cost for a middle-income family to raise a child to age 18 was $245,000, and that did not include college. I used to tell my students when they were thinking about having a child, they needed to ask themselves if they had an extra $25 a day to spend toward meeting the needs, the costs of that child. So do you have an extra $25 today and tomorrow, etc., to raise a child? There are some opportunity costs. Parents often forgo income or investment opportunities when they raise children. They have to work additional hours, therefore having less leisure time, which means less time spent with their children. And many of you children, as you thought about how involved your parents were in your life, you probably realized that many times they couldn't attend certain events because they had to work. So there's many different opportunity costs. However, for most of us who decide to have children, when we weigh those rewards and costs to having children, we see there are way more rewards to having a family than what it costs to have one. So enjoy the rest of this chapter.